Good afternoon, everybody. It looks like it's starting to slow down. We do still have some folks trickling into the meeting, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. My name is Kimberley Petz, and I have Kathleen Arceo here with me. We are the Assistant Directors in Employer Services, and we are your hosts for today's meeting. So if you are new to the format of how we do our EACs, this is a Zoom webinar, which means that you can see everything that we're doing and you can see us, but you cannot turn on your cameras or unmute your microphone without first raising your hand. So this format allows us to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to speak that wants to, and that all questions get answered that come up during the meeting. In front of you, you'll see the agenda for today's meeting. As I mentioned, this is not a very long meeting today. We are prepping for the May EAC that will be very heavily focused on the pension solution project. So a little bit of a reprieve today on inundating you with information. If you need access to the materials for today's meeting, there's a QR code that will take you directly to the spot on our website where all of those materials are. And you can also see the link if you want to type it into your browser below. Next slide. So as I mentioned, if you have questions during this webinar and during one of the presentations, there is a button on your participant screen or on your screen that says raise hand, and that will let us know to call on you. And once we call on you, you will get a message through the webinar to unmute your microphone, and then you can ask your question. If you are not comfortable raising your hand in this environment and speaking in front of the group, you can send an email to advisorycommittee@calstrs.com. And we do have someone manning that box throughout the meeting, and they will let us know when there is a message in one of those in that email box, and we will bring it up during the meeting and have it addressed. Moving on. So I would like to introduce Dan Demaglie, who will be talking about the Pension Solution Project update and our employer readiness team. Dan, take it away.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Kim. As you mentioned, my name is Dan Demaglie. I am the most recent employer readiness lead, and I oversee the employer readiness team. So we can go to the next slide. All right. So I wanted to touch on some upcoming events, specifically the Spring Employer Readiness webinar, which is scheduled for March 11th. Right now, we have the invites ready to go. So check your inbox shortly after EAC, and we will send that out for that March 11th date. At that time, we will go over our latest data refresh for the employer readiness environment, which will take place on March 13th, just a couple of days after that webinar. And at that point, you'll be able to fulfill and validate success criterion 2 and 3 as part of our success criteria. And I wanted to also mention about our employer readiness support, which includes our employer readiness team, which is the email at ps employerreadiness@calstrs.com, and our employer support portal. Thank you. Go to the next slide, please. All right, so here is the employer readiness schedule update. As you can see, the final file validation kickoff webinar took place in October, and that is still available on the employer support portal. And that began the final file validation period with our old file format. Another important date, as I mentioned on the previous slide, is our spring webinar, which will be on March 11th. And then there's a couple of other dates on here. Since Go Live is fast approaching, just a few months out now, we have the cutover date, which will be in September. There'll be more detail on that during the March webinar, so I encourage everybody to sign up and attend that. And then shortly thereafter will be our exact schedule for the new SO and the Go Live. And of course, that will be with old file format. Next slide, please. And again, I just wanted to mention our employersupport.calstrs.com, which is our employer support portal. On there, there's a bunch of resources, which includes computer-based trainings, job aids. Any new resources that we add will be shown in the announcements in that location. So if you're familiar with that, it's on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, there's some drop downs with all of our resources on there. But of course, also check current and present day to get any other announcements on there. We'll be using both of those so that all of our employers will be abreast on all the information as it comes out. And then our PS employer readiness at CalSTRS.com is our employer readiness team direct inbox. So if you have not scheduled a readiness visit with us already, please reach out directly to us and we will schedule one with you. And if you have any other questions regarding the upcoming dates or final file validation period, please just reach out directly to us and we'll get back to you very quickly on that. We're very excited moving forward. And once we get through that March webinar and the new data refresh, we're going to be sprinting to go live. So very excited for everybody. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for hosting me. Again, my name is Dan Demaglie, and that's it for me.
Dan, it looks like you have a question. So Leticia, can we get her microphone unmuted, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering, do we still contact Nick Grafton or is he not part of the team?
Yeah, good question. Thank you. So, yeah, if you have a contact, which is Nick, Bill, or Mike, directly, you can contact them, or you can contact that inbox, whichever you prefer. So each one of them has assigned employers directly. So whichever you're more comfortable with, feel free to reach out either way.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It looks like Deepa had a hand raised next.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to ask, we've worked with Nick before. This is Sonoma County Junior College District, and we've done some uploading and testing in the environment of with our files, a cash balance especially, but we've kind of lost track on that for the past few months. So how do we make sure that we will be on that email, the invite list for in March, that the invites that we're going to go out? Should I follow up with Nick directly on that, or do I email you, Daniel? How do I do that?
Sure, I'll double check to make sure you're on there. All existing contacts should still be on our list. We have a big list with all of our employer contacts, and that will be included on that webinar invite. So I'll double check for you, Deepa, to ensure that that is going out. But yeah, you should be getting that shortly thereafter this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe we also intend to put that information on SEW and on the employer support portal. So even if you don't receive an invite for whatever reason, you will be able to register by going to one of those two places where that information will also be.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Kim.
And then Renee. Oh, there we go. Now you're unmuted, Renee.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Is this March 11th webinar geared towards COEs or for districts as well?
It's more geared towards COEs, but depending on how each employer is set up, we have a specific contact list. Our team's going to be reaching out to some of the districts or the COEs about districts in the near future as well. So if we usually try to keep these webinars a little bit higher scale, but we are going to be doing some intentional outreach for the districts as well. But I'll have more specific information sent out with that invite for that as well.
Okay, so I should not let my districts know about the March 11th and wait until a future date?
Let me double check with the team to make sure that the content is specific for that, and I'll reach out directly to you, Renee.
Okay, thank you.
Teresa.
Hello. Thank you. You did mention quickly about the cutover date and then the go live in the new website with the old file format. There's a window of time where nothing can be submitted. You're going to go over more details on how that's going to look at that March meeting, including our concerns with penalties and interest processing and charges and all the list of questions we've asked in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be a lot
Okay.
more detail in that webinar. And then we have some presentations as time goes on that will be more specific to penalties and interest as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there will be a lot of communication regarding cutover and all of those concerns, both at that March conversation, and then we'll be revisiting that in the May EAC as well. Okay. No more questions for Dan.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks, Dan. Moving on. Next slide. So I'm going to introduce Cassandra Mallett-Beck from our financial services branch, and she is going to talk about the update to P&I regulations.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Cassandra Mallett-Beck. A lot of you guys know me as Cassie. I'm one of the managers in the financial services branch, and I am here to provide an update on the new language for the penalty and interest regulations. Next slide, please. So today we're going to go over the new language, and then I have some next steps and resources. So hopefully this is somewhat familiar to you because I think Joycelyn has been providing some updates, but we went through the regulatory process and we were successful in getting the language approved by the Office of Administrative Law. So what I want to do today is provide a little bit of overview of the new language that we added to the existing penalty and interest regulations. Again, provide some next steps and a couple resources. Okay, so let's get into it. Next slide, please. So what we focused on really with updates to these regulations is mainly providing more exemptions in here for employers. And as you can see at the top, we're referencing the sections that all of these exemptions are listed for. And in case you don't know these sections by heart, we're referencing all penalty types in these sections. So what I want to do is go over the exemptions with you. And if you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to ask them. So the first one is really related to if there's an emergency situation, a natural human-made, war-caused, something that's considered an emergency defined by the California Emergency Services Act. And there are two pieces to this. So essentially, you have to be able to show that the penalty was directly related to your inability to operate during this emergency event. And then CalSTRS is provided or has access to some sort of documentation providing us with proof of the emergency situation. So an example of this would be obviously the devastating fires that occurred earlier this year in LA. That's what we're trying to accomplish here in this section. And again, this is in each of the sections. So this would cover all penalty types, penalty 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next slide, please. This next bullet is referencing a couple education codes, section 22325 and 22326. So just a reminder, those were education codes that were put into law during AB 1667. One is referencing the employer resources CalSTRS provides, and the other one is the advisory letters. And so what this section is accomplishing is if you as the employer acted under direction or in compliance with these sections, and by doing so received penalties and interest, this is basically saying that we would waive those penalties. And again, this is, as you can see at the top, I'm referencing all sections. So this would cover penalties 1 through 4. And really in that section, it has to be directly related to that. And then the last bullet is essentially saying that if there was a result of an outage or a constraint of our CalSTRS system, an example of this would be the SEW website is having challenges and you can't submit your file, this would provide us authority to waive the interest as it was directly as a result of our system. Next slide, please. So this section is providing clarification on an exemption that was in the existing regulations. So if you're not familiar, there's an exemption that essentially is regarding like bargained retroactive agreements. And the existing language essentially says if you submit the reporting and the contributions within 90 days of the date of the agreement or the date in the agreement that's promising the future increases, you're exempted from penalties and interest. And so what we did is we added a little bit of clarifying language to this section. We added the word calendar days, so it's 90 calendar days. And we're just providing clarification by what we mean from approved. We heard some feedback from some employers that it's a little, wasn't as clear. So what we added some language basically that says, everyone's approved it and it's operative. So that means the union has ratified it, the employers have adopted it, and it's in operation. So that's essentially what that section is referring to. And again, that covers penalties 1 through 4 as well. Next slide, please. So this is a new section we added to the penalty and interest regulation, section 27010. And what this section is doing is it's providing some clarification on our practices. So the first bullet is saying that if you have a penalty and interest invoice and you do not pay the invoice within 30 days of the date of that invoice, it is subject to regular interest. And what we did was we clarified what we mean by pay. So money has to be on deposit with CalSTRS, and you have to inform CalSTRS which payment you are applying to that invoice within that 30-day time frame. So there's a couple ways as employers you can accomplish this. You can log into our contribution account portal and use our account management tool where you can associate your payments, your invoices. You have the ability to associate and disassociate in there. The disassociation button has to be used on the same day you do it before 5 o'clock in order for it to be effective. So we always tell employers, once you make an association, please take a look at it and make sure it's what you've intended to do, because you can unwind it if you need to, but it has to be done on that same day before 5 o'clock. You can also submit a remittance advice referencing that P&I invoice. And what CalSTRS will do is once the payment's received, we will take that payment and attach it to that invoice. And then if you pay via ACH, I believe there's a section in there where you can reference the invoice number. And again, what CalSTRS will do is take that payment and attach it to that invoice. And as long as it's done within 30 days from the date of that invoice, then you'll be okay from the interest perspective. And then the last bullet is really covering an existing practice. So essentially, if it's determined that penalties are not valid and the penalties are reversed, the interest would be reversed as well. So an example of this would be, let's say you were assessed penalties and interest and you filed a dispute with CalSTRS and it was determined that the penalties are not valid. If interest applied, we would reverse that interest as well. This is an existing practice. We're just clarifying it in the regulations. Next slide, please. So next steps. This language will be effective April 1, 2025. What this means for you employers as far as how we're going to accomplish this, we'll continue to work with you guys through the dispute process. Unfortunately, there wasn't a way to systematically take care of these waivers or these exemptions. So we'll have to work through the dispute process, but we can assist with that. There's a penalty and interest circular that will be available this spring. It's currently through review, so we'll have that out there this springtime. And then myself and my team are reviewing other resources and job aids that we think might be applicable and helpful that we want to see if we can put out there and provide. So we're taking a look at those now to see if there's anything else we can put out there to assist. Next slide, please. resources. So the first bullet is the website to the Office of Administrative Law. If you click there, you can get to the language. I will tell you the language is already published on there, but again, it doesn't become operative until April 1st, 2025. Our second bullet is a CalSTRS.com website. This is where the language is out there as well. And I believe other documents that were submitted from the regulatory package are out there if you would like to take a look at those. And then the last bullet is our inbox for our team, contributions@calstrs.com. You can email us there and we can help you address your questions. Myself or a member of my team are happy to assist. And that is all I have.
Kathy, it looks like you have a question from Teresa. Teresa, go ahead.
Hi, Teresa.
Oh, it's actually Kaylin from Stanislaus COE. I work under Teresa.
Hi, Teresa.
So sorry if you said this already and I didn't catch it, but so you said that the invoices need to be paid within 30 days. So I understand that, but when we pay on the Gov1 website through the ACH, so when we pay, the day that we pay, it debits the next day. It doesn't allow us to make a same day payment. So if the invoice is due today 2/12, but it's not allowing us to submit or debit it until tomorrow, are you guys still considering it on time because we're submitting it today to you guys?
So we would consider it the date that we receive the payment. So if the payment is received to us on 2/12, then we would recognize that date. So it's essentially the date that CalSTRS has that payment. So I think in your situation, it would
Need to be the day before.
Day late. Yeah. So I could ask our subject matter experts in our treasury unit, but I think you can schedule it for a specific day and you would probably want to schedule it the day before to give yourself that space. But I can confirm that and get back to you.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. I mean, we definitely try to be ahead of the game, not the day of, but I just wanted to make sure just in case, things happen.
Thank you. Very good question.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a question from James.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Is this contributions at CalSTRS, is that a good mailbox to ask the question about clarification on items that we have received penalties on, specifically special compensation that has been reported as part of a retro that received penalties and interest on it?
Yeah, so if your question is related to the penalties and interest, yes, this would be a good inbox. We answer any penalty and interest questions on existing regulations. So yes, if it's more so on how to report something, we would point you to our employer help team. But if it's specifically about the penalties, yes, please send questions there and we're happy to help you.
Okay.
Okay, so if there's any more questions for Cassie, we will open them up in the open forum part of the meeting. And so she'll stick around in case anyone has any other questions. Kathleen?
Thanks, Kim. I'd like at this time to introduce Joycelyn Martinez-Wade, who's here to give us our legislative update. Joycelyn?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you. Happy New Year. We can go to the next slide. We're watching legislation being introduced for the 2025 session. The deadline for legislators to introduce bills is February 21st, so it's a week from Friday. Committees can introduce committee bills after that date, but the bulk we should see roll in next week. It has been light so far. If you've been following the limitation or sort of a self-agreed to limit on how many bills each legislator can introduce. It's been at 50 bills, which is quite a lot, and they have lowered it to 35 bills each this year. So I'm not sure if that's why things are trickling in and we're not seeing as many bills or what it might be. But so far, the only bill that directly affects CalSTRS that's been introduced is AB 65, and that's pregnancy leave for educators, providing up to 14 weeks of leave for pregnancy or other related conditions. The board took a support position on this. It is largely similar to last year's AB 2901, which the board also took a support position on. 2 new provisions requiring that any healthcare provided to employees continue to be provided while someone is on this type of leave, and a requirement that no additional eligibility criteria be added except for what's already in the bill. So pretty straightforward new provisions in the bill. That's the one we are tracking for right now. We do have our housekeeping bill that will be introduced. It's the Senate Labor, Public Employment, and Retirement Committee that will be running that bill this year. You see the list of the minor proposals that will be a part of it. We got a clarifying change for AB 1997 to make sure that for a position subject to membership, an annualized pay rate for that it's for any position. Someone can have more than one position subject to membership, so we don't want that to be limiting. We are reiterating the board's authority regarding membership and employers who has membership in the system and who are employers subject to the system. For the reduced workload program, we're clearing up when that would potentially be terminated. It talks about time worked, and it's really about when you get paid. So if someone's on leave and you're being paid and you fall below the 50% like of time worked, let's say, but you're paid because you're on a qualified leave, you would not be terminated from the RWP. So there's a short cleanup on that. Contribution due dates, we're clarifying that, and this is for the state really, if any contributions that are due to us or it's overpayments that the state is responsible for, if that falls on a holiday or a weekend, we are clarifying that we would get those contributions the next business day. And a venue requirement for subrogation if a third party is responsible for a disability or a death that then results in a benefit being paid from CalSTRS. If that court case is in subrogation, we are saying that it be venued in California. So the appropriate county for where that happened, or if it was outside of the state, that it be venued in Sacramento County. So pretty straightforward housekeeping proposals this year. Wanted to mention those, not yet introduced. So we have no bill number yet, but you'll see it sometime before too long. And I also wanted to mention HR 82. This is the Social Security Fairness Act, which repeals the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset from the Social Security Act. And so no direct effect on CalSTRS per se, but we've done a lot of communication about how the weapon GPO used to affect our members. This is effective for benefits payable from January 2024 forward. And again, repeals those 2 offsets. And so we're going through an effort to update our communications, how we provide benefit specialist sessions to members, those sort of things. So we have a lot going on that front, but wanted to let you know that. Okay, next slide, please. So for 2024 implementation update on AB 1997 on credible comp simplification, we're going through an effort to craft regulations that will define some of the terms in that legislation, update regulations we already have for credible compensation, make sure they align with the bill, that sort of thing. We are going to go to the board in March to start the formal rulemaking process. We've been in the preliminary rulemaking process for a while, making sure we get feedback on the language that we're going to be proposing. So stay tuned for that. It will get posted with the board items for the March meeting. I think it will be presented on March 13th. And of course, then there will be, after that, training for employers, for people who are negotiating contracts on the employer side, the exclusive representative side, for people who are reporting to us. And then there will need to be changes to the system, and that will be after the go live that was talked about earlier. But those are some things that will be coming up in the future. It seems far away, but it'll be here before we know it. So I wanted to mention it. And then next slide, please. Okay, so I have these here as a placeholder. There's nothing going on right now, but there will be things going on. And I do have hot off the presses for SB 327, and this has to do with how far back a member can backdate their service retirement application. It's limiting it to 9 months. We are taking a consent action item to the board in March. So again, though, we'll be providing approval for an implementation date of January 1st, 2026, and that'll put that limit of 9 months for backdating a service retirement application. So I don't believe anything to do on your end except for be aware, but I wanted to hold space for that bill here. And then SB 765, on the post-retirement earnings limitations. Again, this bill, the changes from this bill are effective from July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2026. So I keep it here since we'll be reverting back to the laws that existed prior to July 1, 2024 in a year and a half about. So I just want people to be aware and not forget about that. But the processes and procedures, the forms, everything's in place for you already as to how that bill updated the statute. So next slide, please. I think then I move on to the regs update. So any questions about legislation, let me know. We'll see if anything gets introduced by the 21st that we'll be bringing to our board for a position. Of course, I'll come back in May to let you know about that if that's the case. Okay, next slide, please. So the regs update, Cassie was able to cover all of the first bullet there on the penalties and interest regulations. So I appreciate that. And then we have some updates here. So AB 1667. So we have been in the preliminary rulemaking activities, and we are actually going to the board in March to get permission to begin the formal rulemaking activities. So I'm looking forward to that moving forward, and the process and procedures regarding some about the audits, and then especially the appeals process is what we're looking for there. So stay tuned for that and the items that get posted. The board elections regulations, we have been drafting those. Those affect the 3 board members who are members of our system and how they get elected to their positions. They're pretty straightforward. We're updating them, making sure members who do sign on to petitions to support candidates don't have to provide their social security numbers anymore, that signatures can be provided electronically and packets can be provided to us electronically. So sort of some modernization going on there, and then some reordering to make sure everything moves smoothly in the regulations. They were added a long time ago, so it's in need of an update. But we are actually running the language by our liaisons now who provide a review of language. So we're in those preliminary rulemaking activities, and this set of regs doesn't have to go through the Office of Administrative Law. It's not subject to the Administrative Procedure Act. So we will be going to the board for a first reading at some point in time where people can make comments and they'll get a first look at that language and then bring it back for adoption or second reading after that. But we're not to that phase yet, but hopefully we will be in the next several months or so. And then I did talk about the AB 1997 regulations a bit, but again, we're planning to take those to the board to start that formal rulemaking activity in March. So that's all I have for you today. Happy to answer questions about the regulations that we have going on right now, if you have any.
I don't see any hands raised.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Joycelyn. So as I mentioned, we don't have a very heavy agenda for you all this quarter. So if you go forward a slide, this would start our open forum section of the meeting. So if there's anything that anyone needs to ask at this point or clarify with regards to what was covered earlier in the meeting, I did want to mention with the Pension Solution Project, for those of you who we're sort of used to seeing John Hammond around here with his updates. That is the role that Dan Demaglie will be filling from here on forward. And so if you do have questions that normally you might have gone to John Hammond for, Dan will be the person going forward for those types of questions. As he mentioned also, Bill, Mike, and Nick are also available to you as they always have been. And I promise that the next EAC will definitely cover a lot of ground when it comes to that Pension Solution Project, because we will be bringing a lot of that messaging together in that particular meeting. But between now and then, we do anticipate communication out to all employers regarding things like cutover and some of the questions that I know you all have. So next slide. Oh, there is a question. Patricia, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I believe my question is for Cassandra. On the penalties and interest, the 90 calendar days for where the retro is going to be issued, and it says 90 calendar days from the first date on which both parties have completed the ratification and approval or adoption process. we have districts sometimes that they'll ratify with a future date for their retro. Does that 90 days have to be, is it counting from the date that it's ratified or adopted? Or can it be the date that they state, which might be greater than the 90 days that it was ratified on?
It's a good question. I have to think about that. I think there's already provisions in there talking about you can list the date and when it has to be paid out, but the agreement has to be operative. So that language is saying it has to be operative. And good, Joycelyn's popping on here to keep me honest. But there is language in the existing regs also that talks about the effective date of those agreements or the date in the agreement that provides for those increases. So there's a couple like options in that language, but it does have to be operative. And Joycelyn, please hop on if you want to add any clarification.
Totally agree with that. Thanks, Cassie.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Cassie or Joycelyn? Leticia?
Hi. How long does it take to resolve a dispute?
Cassie?
I'm coming back. We try to resolve them quickly. It really depends on the nature of the dispute. We do try to process our disputes within 90 days of the date of the agreement. That's kind of the service level that we try to meet. But it really depends on the nature of the dispute. If it's straightforward, if it's a few lines you're disputing versus thousands of lines you're disputing. If you have one that you're waiting on, I can definitely look into that one for you and get back to you.
Okay, yes, I do.
Okay. Okay. I will do that and I will get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa, we have another hand raised. Go ahead.
Hi, this is in regard to the ES 0372 form.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard different guidance on this over the years, so I just wanted to put it out there. When we have adjunct faculty, they have the ability to permissively elect into CalSTRS. Once they permissively elect into CalSTRS, as an adjunct faculty, they're hired on a semester by semester basis, right? It's a part-time temporary position, and so they're rehired on a semester by semester or maybe every other semester or whatever basis, right? So if they elect CalSTRS, permissively elect CalSTRS, and in a future semester, do they have, if they are a member of CalPERS and have at least 5 years of CalPERS credit service, they're vested in CalPERS, could they have the option to fill out the ES 0372 and pay into CalPERS on their adjunct faculty assignment?
So I'm going to put the call out to either Samantha or Karen or Nicole for them to answer you. So we might need to unmute a microphone for one of them.
And while they're doing that, on the form itself, it says I'm a member of CalPERS who has accepted employment to perform service that requires membership in the CalSTRS defined benefit program and an eligible to elect continued covered under CalPERS. So it does require membership once they've permissively
elected, right? And so I'm going to have Nicole speak on that. Go ahead, Nicole.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry, I don't know why the camera isn't working, but I'm here. I see at least Kim and Kathleen. Hi, beautiful faces. Okay, so it's the answer that you always love to hear from us is it depends. So the law is specific around that these individuals have this right to elect based on when they take a new position that requires membership in the other retirement system. So if you're saying that these adjunct faculty are considered to be rehired in a new position every semester, then each time they're hired in a new position, they would have the right to elect. If you don't consider them rehired or hired in a new position each semester, then it's basically the election that they made the first time that they are considered hired in that position. I hope that makes sense.
I guess, I mean, I would think that everybody would consider an adjunct faculty rehired. They get unemployment between their semesters. So wouldn't it be considered a rehire?
I think that's different between the different districts. So it's not like a one size fits all type of thing. So I mean, regardless of if they are considered rehired or not, it's the law is clear that it's based off when they're hired in a new position. So we would defer to you on when you would consider them to have been hired in a position or hired in a new position.
And I think if there is more specifics that we maybe need to look at in terms of how your employment agreements read or what your contract says, I would have you reach out on the individual details of that. Thanks, Nicole.
No problem.
Any other questions? Leticia.
What's the process? I'm piggybacking on the ES 372s. What's the process between CalPERS and CalSTRS? I have like 4 employees, and it's not CalSTRS's fault, it's CalPERS, that I'm trying to get approved. And there's instances where CalSTRS has already told CalPERS that these employees qualify for membership, so therefore they're eligible for the ES 372. And CalPERS, for whatever reason, says that they haven't heard from CalSTRS, but there's proof that they have heard. So what's the process behind the scenes for this?
So the process is that they reach out to us to validate membership. It's not a very intensive process, so it's a pretty quick response on our end. So if you have some specifics that you're waiting on, I would definitely reach out to CalPERS and clarify, because we don't have any visibility into their particular process. On our end, we simply validate for them and answer their question. Again, it's a quick turnaround on our part.
Okay, then it's probably them that are just dragging their feet. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, it looks like we have one that came in through the inbox for, and it says, this is from Sonoma. If one of my districts made a correction to reporting for someone who retired 10 years ago and it generates an AB 1667 invoice, would the invoice be for the amount that CalSTRS is out since AB 1667 passed, or would it be all 10 years of retirement benefit worth? Nicole, I think I'm going to have you jump in on that one. I think if I am correct, the amount is based on when the receivable hits, not when the reporting was for. But if we can get some clarification on that. Go ahead, Nicole.
I had to get unmuted again. I do not know off the top of my head on that. My brain is just far enough outside of 1667 to not remember that. So I would rather go find that out for sure and get back to you if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll forward you the email and we can circle back with Sonoma.
Okay, Sonoma, thank you.
Yeah. Good questions. Anyone else? All right, so next slide will bring us to the next date for EAC. What I will say though is, especially for those of you that are at COEs, please do not neglect the invite for the May Pension Solution webinar. That is going to be key. And if you have not had a readiness conversation with the employer readiness folks, or you need to have additional clarifications or conversations, please reach out sooner than later. We definitely want to make sure everyone is on the same page going forward on what that all looks like. And then, as Dan mentioned earlier, we will be reaching out specifically with information for district level folks. And please keep an eye on the SEW messaging and the employer support portal for more communication regarding districts between now and definitely the next EAC, but also between now and go live. Part of the reason why that webinar is specific to COEs is because everybody at every COE works with their districts differently. And so that's why that one is geared more towards that higher level conversation. And then we are absolutely open to having conversations with your districts that is more specific to the way you all work together. So any other questions on that? So May 14th will be our next EAC, and we'll be talking a lot about pension solution, cutover, all of the things that go along with that. All right, thanks you all. Thanks all so much for being here, and we will see you next time.